Hi guys, welcome to our channel Love Yourself with Neetu, and this is Neetu. As you always know, I'm here to promote the self-love factor in our daily lives. Also, along with that, I make NCLEX videos. And in this video, I'm gonna make a quick review about warfarin, or also known as Coumadin. Okay, so without getting further ado, let's get into the video. Each and every second, our body undergoes repairs and maintenance in our body, okay, inside our body. And also, like every time when we get an injury, you know what happened? The blood is gonna go out through that injured part, right? But our bodies recognize that, and then the body is gonna send something over there, which is called platelets, okay? So that fighting warriors against the bleeding. So they come to the site, and then with the help of vitamin K and everything, they're gonna create a lot of clotting factors, and they're gonna make a web-like hard substance called thrombus. That thrombus is now blocking that injured part from blood getting away from there. This same thing is happening inside our blood vessels. Blood needs a consistency, right? Everything has a consistency, like water needs a consistency like this. And then also, like if you make something called ice cream or anything, that has a little more thick consistency, right? And our blood also should have this kind of consistency, and that's going to be a viscous consistency. Major part of giving that viscosity to the blood vessels or the blood are taken care of by these platelets with the help of vitamin K. So the clotting cascade, that is like a chain of procedures, okay, with the help of lot of things like, vitamin K, platelets, and then clotting factors like, 7, 8, 9, lot of clotting factors. And everybody is gonna work together for a goal. The goal is, clotting and blocking that injured part, or giving viscous nature to our blood. So whatever they undergo is like, it's a procedure, and that is called coagulation cascade. Coagulation is simply meaning clotting. It's a more refined word. Coagulation cascade is that it's a procedure taken care of by different okay, it's a procedure doing by different particles of our body. So that is the coagulation cascade, and the end goal is actually either giving the blood a viscous nature, or actually making a thrombus to stop bleeding. If these clotting factors are high or low, depending on that, there's gonna be a problem. If there are like lot more platelets, lot more vitamin K, lot more clotting factors, of course the ability for them to clot the blood is high, higher than the need we have. If we don't have an injury, we don't need the blood to clot like that. Also, even if we do have an injury, we don't need that much clotting factors, or that much vitamin K, or that much platelets to clot and block the injured way and heal it. We don't need that. Also, when these clotting factors are go high in our blood, what's gonna happen is, like, in areas that blood is gonna get pooled, like not every bit of blood vessel is carrying the blood in a faster rate. No. So in, especially like in venous system, it's not like something pumping. It's like valve system. It's gonna go up slowly. That's how venous system carries blood. So that slow nature is gonna cause these platelets, vitamin K, clotting factors to get activated, and then it's gonna cause like clotting. I mean, the consistency is gonna get higher. The blood vessels that they carry blood like in a slower rate, these elevated vitamin K, platelets, and clotting factors can increase the viscosity, or even they can build clots. They can build the same substance they can use to stop bleeding. They could actually make the substance inside the blood vessels even though there is no injury. So that is like that is their ability to do that. And also like the venous system, okay, if we have like in the heart have valves, right? So heart has like 4 valves, and then these valves are gonna be affected by this, because also before pumping, there is a time there the blood is gonna fill up the valve, I mean fill up the chamber, right? And then the valve, when the chamber pump it, the valve is gonna open and then the blood is gonna flow out. That's how it works. So that time, with that time it takes for the blood to come come in and fill in the chamber. That's the time that blood can clot. With that being said, like even there's like this high clotting factors are there's a high chance the blood can get clot, especially when there's like a repair in the valve. The valve is not functioning well, or like we repaired with a prosthetic valve or something, there's high chance for the blood to clot. And also like some people have this issue like atrial fibrillation. That means the atria of the heart is gonna like this, it's gonna fibrillating, like that means like it's gonna like shivering but not pumping enough. It's not pumping hard enough, it's pumping but it's like this, it's like shivering kind of thing. So that also in that case also, there's high chance for the blood to get clot and actually make a thrombus if there is high clotting factors. And what happens if there is a thrombus in the venous system or in the atria or in the valve or wherever it is? What happens if there is a clot in the blood vessel? If there's a clot in the blood vessel, there's high chance that it's gonna get dislodged. Dislodged means like sometimes maybe it's attached to the blood vessel, or sometimes it's just floating in the blood vessel. When this thrombus get dislodged, or when this thrombus start to float inside the blood vessel, it can go to anywhere, okay? It can go to anywhere that blood vessel is gonna end. It can go to capillaries, it can go to wherever that blood vessel goes. The problem is when the blood vessel is getting narrower, and then the thrombus cannot go any more further, the thrombus can get stuck. And depending on the place it is, you can say how dangerous it is, because imagine that the thrombus is gonna stuck inside the lungs vessels. Lungs will not get enough oxygen from because there's a block. Now the thrombus is blocked the blood vessel, and now the part after the thrombus, the blood vessels after that, after the thrombus located, it's not gonna have enough blood, and it's not gonna have the ability to give oxygenated blood to the lungs, because it doesn't have enough blood to give enough oxygen to the lungs. So in that case, you're gonna have like pulmonary embolism. That means you're gonna have like severe chest pain, your lungs are gonna collapse, and a lot of things can happen, and then your brain will not get oxygen, your major organs does not get oxygen, you can go into shock. That thrombus can actually block the blood vessels in the brain as well, because that can lead to transient ischemic stroke. That means like recurrent, repeating small strokes inside the brain, or it can actually cause a very major cerebrovascular accident. That means a major stroke that can lead to ischemia in your brain. That means your brain tissues, after that block, the blood vessels are not able to get enough blood to give the brain, because that the block is actually blocking the blood vessel, and after the block it's not gonna have blood. It's not gonna, the thrombus or the emboli is not letting the blood vessels to push blood further. That means the blood vessels after that is not gonna have enough blood to give brain. That means the brain is not getting enough oxygen. So if you have atrial fibrillation, like I said, or if you have a history of stroke and transient ischemic stroke, it should be ischemic stroke. If it's a hemorrhagic stroke, they're not gonna give you warfarin, because that's gonna increase bleeding, right? And if it's a TIA, or if you have a cerebrovascular accident, ischemic cerebrovascular accident, or if you have high tendency to build up thrombus, like if you have high amount of platelets in your body, or if you undergone a valve surgery, like if you have a prosthetic valve instead of the natural valve you had, there's high chance for this blood to get clot. So doctors often give warfarin sodium, which is also known as Coumadin, for you for a long-term use. And it's the one thing that we have to remember is it's not for a short-term. No, it's not for an emergency situation. With that being said, if you are on warfarin, you have to actually let the doctors know before you undergo any surgery. And even if you're not undergoing any surgery, you have to tell your new healthcare provider, hey, I'm taking warfarin. It's already putting you at risk for bleeding, and then if you're going for a surgery or any kind of procedure, and if the doctor doesn't know about it, it's gonna actually make you bleed, and bleeding makes people die actually out of it. So you have to be very conscious about it. Also, that being said, on an emergency situation, warfarin doesn't work. Like the doctors detect, hey, there's a stroke, or there's like a thrombus in your blood vessel, and that needs to be actually that needs to be taken out of there. And then they can give you something that can melt the thrombus away from your blood vessel or blood, and by that way the blood vessel can regain the actual blood flow. In that case, warfarin doesn't work. Warfarin sodium or Coumadin is not a good choice at that time. You can use with alternatives, but it's not the first choice. It's not gonna, because it has a delayed onset, it's not gonna affect like immediately. The effect of that medicine is not gonna start immediately. So it takes time, and then at that stage, if the doctor suspects there is a clot in your lungs or in your brain, there is no time. There needs to be something that needs to be acting very quickly on the clot. If you are pregnant, it is a category X medicine. You cannot have it. Also, if you have some renal or liver problems, the doctors are going to think about giving you a warfarin. And if you are an alcoholic, the doctors would not give you warfarin. Also, if you have severe hypertension, if you have vitamin K deficiency, if you have bleeding disorders like hemophilia and thrombocytopenia, doctors will not give you, because that makes you susceptible for high bleeding tendency. Hemophilia is already bleeding. And thrombocytopenia is that you don't have enough platelets in your body. That means they're going to put you in high risk for bleeding as well. Vitamin K deficiency, how vitamin K is affecting warfarin. So platelets need vitamin K to function. In order to complete the coagulation cascade, platelets need vitamin K. And there's like vitamin K deficiency. That means already there's less coagulation taking place, and then less coagulation means the blood is very thin. And if you apply warfarin, it's gonna make it way more thinner. That means now you're not clotting anything, and you're gonna have the tendency to bleed. So that is not a good choice. If you are vitamin K deficient, the doctors are gonna think about, hey, do I have to give warfarin to this patient? Breastfeeding and pregnancy, it is a no-no, because it can cross your placenta to your baby, and that's gonna have a high bleeding inside your uterus or inside the baby, and babies only have a little bit of blood, and then if that's gonna bleed out, they can die. So it's a no-no for pregnancy or breastfeeding. What are the things that we need to actually look for when we have a patient who is on warfarin? We have to look for the PT INR time. That means INR means international normalized ratio as ordered. 2 to 3 is usually an acceptable INR for anticoagulation. So we have to make sure that is in the normal range, because if that is out of whack, that means either we have to take out the warfarin, or we need to increase something, increase the dose of warfarin. So we need to do that. And also Also, when we give a large number of medication, or even if we only give one other medication, we need to make sure that medication is not going to interfere with this medication, warfarin, and that doesn't cause any side effects or any adverse effects on the patient. So we need to make sure that. Also, we need to do something else too. We need to teach the patient to decrease intake of green leafy vegetables. That's actually funny because there are patients that are not, they don't take these green leafy vegetables. So we need to actually make sure what we are telling before we telling them. If the patient is not adequately taking vitamin K, we are not gonna tell them to stop the sources they are getting vitamin K from, because like they don't have vitamin K, if they have a vitamin K deficiency, that's going to affect them badly. So we need to make sure if they are eating vitamin K, and also like we don't want them to eat any higher dose of vitamin K, because that's going to actually interfere with the effect of warfarin. So if they take more vitamin K, and then if they are on warfarin, the warfarin is not going to do any good for them, because now what they're doing is like they are taking more vitamin K to counteract the effect of warfarin, and then the thrombus can build up eventually. So make sure to ask them if how well they are taking vitamin K. Are they taking vitamin K supplement, or are they taking how much leafy green vegetables, and make sure you're telling them the correct information. And please, a patient must advise all healthcare providers if patient is taking warfarin. Like I said, they need to let them know, even if they are not on the warfarin for 1 to 2 days. Warfarin takes a little while to excrete through the kidney, so that means warfarin may be still in their blood, and that can cause bleeding while they are going under surgery or any kind of invasive procedures, and that's gonna cause like death. Even death, they can die during the procedure. So they need to let the new healthcare providers know, or any healthcare providers know, hey, I'm taking warfarin, before getting the treatment. So I told you the how warfarin is actually affecting our blood. It's gonna actually decrease the ability for platelets to clot. That means it works against vitamin K. So vitamin K are responsible to produce the clotting factors, and it's warfarin works against vitamin K, and that's gonna cause low clotting factors. That means low clotting, low coagulation in the blood. That means that there's less chance of building up thrombus in the blood vessel or clot in blood vessels. So that's how warfarin works. So let me tell you what are the clotting factors are. Clotting factor 7, clotting factor 9, clotting factor 10, and prothrombin. So these are the clotting factors are responsible producing by vitamin K, and vitamin K is now in trouble because warfarin is working against vitamin K. And what do we need to look for in patients who are on warfarin? So we need to look for if there is any bleeding tendencies, like if they are injured, or if they have like hemophilia, or if there's anything like that is tending to bleed. They should be very careful about not getting injured and bleed. And we need to look for any hypersensitivity reaction. We don't want the patient to go on anaphylaxis. And also long-term use leading to risk of factors, because warfarin can cause weakening. Warfarin can cause your bones to weak. So that means if you're on warfarin in the long term, you can have weak bones, and that is gonna end up giving you fractures if you fall. So just keep that in mind as well. So that is all about warfarin. Thank you so much for watching. I hope something you can take away from this video, and good luck for your NCLEX RN journey. And if you want to watch videos like this in future, you can actually subscribe and click on the bell button so you won't miss any NCLEX RN videos. Again, thank you so much for watching, and until I see you next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Thank you.